So why exactly did Nvidia gap up so much today? What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with TechBud Solutions, and following up with my video earlier from today, at one point today, I was up a little bit over $4,000. I mean, at one point, my short that I then entered right when I made that video, I was up nearly $5,000. I ended up giving all of that back. I actually shared I shared it on my Instagram. I shared it, of course, to all the people that are part of my LPP team, and I wanted you guys to be able to see it. Ended up cutting losses. I went from 4K in the green, 4.4K to $3,000 in the red. So I gave back all the money that I made today and then some. So I had about 1,000 shares, I think, when I uploaded the first video that today on YouTube. And then I thought I got confirmation that direction was actively going to sell off. I think it was around this time. I added an additional 500 shares to my position, and then it turned against me. I should have cut losses quicker. I should have just accepted that Nvidia was incredibly bullish, but I was stubborn and I paid the price for it. There's no excuse. There's no scapegoat. It's, again, I could either dance with the market or choose to trade against it, and then you get to pay the price. So that's essentially what happened today. Still very excited to see what happens tomorrow. But the question I really began to ask myself is, especially in moments like this, is like, okay, well, what caused so much buying pressure for Nvidia today? Because Nvidia was the biggest winner today by far. Not only was it exceptionally in the green, but it carried the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 market with it. So you might have seen a lot of your tech stocks going up, and it was simply because of the influence that Nvidia pretty much had on the overall market. So if we look into it on why Nvidia popped today, this is on Monthly Fool. There's two things I wanted to highlight. The first thing that they begin to highlight is that, well, inflation is cooling, right? We talked about it earlier today. Inflation did come in lower than it did previously, right? We went from 2.9% to 2.5%. 2.5% was the market's expectation, so there wasn't much of a surprise there. It came in as expected. And if you really think about it, the report is released 1 hour before the market opens. So a lot of people are highlighting that, oh, it was because of the CPI data report, it was because inflation came in lower that the market really gapped up. That wouldn't make sense because, again, it was released 1 hour before, and when it was originally released, it sold off and then began to try to uptrend. And then right when the market opened, it began to sell off. Nvidia, a kind of similar pattern. Nvidia rallied, became very overbought within a short period of time, and corrected itself. So it ended up selling off and going, if I'm not mistaken, in the red at some point today. So that one really didn't make sense to me. It's like, sure, yes, inflation did come in lower than what was expected, but based off of what we previously talked about, we know that the Federal Reserve, their main concern is no longer inflation. Inflation seems to be under control. The labor market is the big focus. And remember, tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens, there's the initial claims and continuing claims, the people that are filing for unemployment for the first time and who continue to file for unemployment. That is the big focus for the Federal Reserve. Because remember, next week during the Fed rate hike or rate cut, they're set to announce if they're going to be cutting interest rates by a quarter or half a basis point. So this is why this article states that, oh, with inflation cooling, this is going to really benefit Nvidia because it's going to lower the cost on interest, and therefore it should be less expensive to produce whatever it is that Nvidia is producing when it comes down to these AI chips. So investors seemed unsure if CPI report, which showed inflation at 2.5% year over year in August, was good news, but by the afternoon, the NASDAQ market was soaring, and it was paced by Nvidia. Now, the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight out of all of this is this other thing that they also highlighted, which I think is just important to pay attention to. Do I really think it's a home run? No, I genuinely think that today was an overreaction, but it was kind of overdue, right? Because the market has been kind of sluggish and bearish for the past few days. So that's why when someone asked me, oh, like this is, they're turning the market against us. Well, not really, right? Not at all. I never want to point the finger and be like, yeah, they screwed us and use them as a scapegoat. At the end of the day, the market was oversold. The market found its support, and it looked like there was enough demand there that it really got the market to recover. This happened just a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. If we look at this on the 1 hour time frame, this happened when we aggressively sold off. We became very oversold, and then all of a sudden, it just began to recover. It became overbought. There wasn't enough hype. It reported earnings, and then it ended up correcting itself. So I'm excited to see of what's going to happen. Are we going to surpass previous highs of 486? Or are we going to make lower highs and therefore show signs of a descending resistance, which is a little bit more on the bearish side of things? And remember, you don't have to trade any of this if you don't feel comfortable. So that's the beautiful part about this, is you could just be paying attention to it and try to look for those overbought and oversold levels and wait for those confirmation of reversals, right? Just like when we're oversold, we confirm a reversal. Just like when we're overbought, we confirm a reversal. We're oversold, we confirm a reversal. That happens with NASDAQ, that happens with Nvidia. And that's one of the beautiful things about this, is that you could learn to play these larger moves at the oversold level, at the overbought level, and at the oversold level, and then wait until we get confirmation for, again, that potential reversal. The last thing that I want to highlight is, finally, according to the report of the semaphore, the federal government is considering permitting Nvidia to export advanced chips to Saudi Arabia, which would use to train advanced AI models. While Saudi Arabia isn't a huge market, which kind of just cracks me up, the loosening of these export rules would benefit Nvidia and would lead to other markets opening up. That makes sense. So if they're opening up to the idea of Nvidia being able to export to different countries, although Saudi Arabia isn't necessarily a huge market, maybe it could open the door for much more opportunities later down the road. That does make sense. But I want to remind you that this wasn't confirmed. It's that they are considering permitting Nvidia to export these chips to Saudi Arabia. It still has to get confirmed. So I wonder if it gets rejected, and if that news ever comes out, if then Nvidia will end up getting rejected or sell off and correct itself back to previous lows. But most likely not, right? Because if it's an overreaction, it's probably just going to be on the plus side, and then maybe a slight little sell off on the downside. But again, there's no reason to try to predict. We only need to focus on one thing. And that's one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to for tomorrow is, again, learning from my mistake today, paying more attention to direction and not being so stubborn on accepting that direction ultimately is changing. When Nvidia really began to take off, my position was relatively lighter. It was about 1,500 shares. I mean, I trade with about 3,000 to 4,000 shares sometimes when it comes down to Nvidia. So it's not that I wasn't able to tolerate. I just, again, Nvidia has been so bearish for the past few days. I kind of just got stuck in my old ways, and it's just a great refresher to remind you that, again, direction can quickly change on you, especially when trading something that is so incredibly bullish long-term like Nvidia. So I'm very excited to see what the markets have to offer. I hope to see you there. And if you want to tune on in, I want to remind you that, again, I do go live every morning. That's for our LPP team. And if you ever want to tune on into my live trading sessions, I want to remind you, prices are going to increase to $700 by the end of September. So you could sign up right now. And again, you're going to save $200. It's the second link in the description down below. And yes, it is a one-time payment, lifetime access, as long as you sign up before September 29th. And yes, you will get access to all of the updates for LPP 3.0 that are coming in October. I appreciate your time. Hope that earned a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.